Dream Children is an autobiographical essay of the great essayist or the prince of essays, Charles Lamb. Charles Lamb was unmarried, he had no children, but in this essay, he imagined how he would entertain his children with the stories about the family, about the family members or their elders, if he had any children. So he is imagining in this essay, and he saw his own children in dream. This essay shows very well that he had a desire to marry and have children, which remained unfulfilled. This desire of Charles Lamb remained unfulfilled because he decided to remain a bachelor throughout his life. Because of his sister, his insane sister Mary, he had to look after her. So, in this essay, Charles Lamb tells us about his two near relatives, about his grandmother, Mrs. Sarafield, and about his elder brother, John Lamb. Lamb, he also tells us about his beloved Annie Simmons, or he has named her Alice Winterton, who had rejected Charles Lamb after 7 years of courtship, and she had married another man named Bartram. So, all the important headings are to be noted for the examination, and let us just have a look at all of them one by one. When this essay starts, we come to know that Charles Lamb, he tells us about children's love for stories. He tells that children's children's fondness to listen to the stories of the childhood of their own elders. So the very first heading is children's love for stories. Charles Lamb tells in this essay that the children are very fond of listening to the stories of their elders, of their forefathers, of their childhood. And children are always very curious because they are very imaginative. They are very curious to know what their forefathers used to do and how they behaved in their childhood. So, this was the reason that Charles Lamb tells them, his imaginary or his dreamy children, the story, because they want to make full use of their imagination. Children are very imaginative and they want to make the best use of their imagination, listening the stories of their elders, of their forefathers. And out of this curiosity, one evening what happened that the little children of Charles Lamb, they gathered. They came to him to hear about their great grandmother, Mrs. Sarafield, and they had heard about her but had never seen her. So now, next one is Alice and John. Now Charles Lamb tells us about these two imaginary children, Alice and John, daughter and son. They both are imaginary, or they both are dream children of Charles Lamb. Charles Lamb, because he was unmarried, he had no children. So Alice and John are nothing but they are the imagination of Charles Lamb, and now he is telling them the story of their great grandmother, Mrs. Field. His grandmother, his Charles Lamb's grandmother and great grandmother of Alice and John. The name of Charles Lamb's grandmother was Mrs. Sarah Field. Mrs. Sarah Field, she lived in a great house. Okay, she lived in a very great house in Norfolk, which had been the scene of the tragic incidents described in one of the ballad, in one of the poem. The name of that ballad or poem was Children in the Wood. This whole story of the children and their cruel uncle was carved out in wood upon the chimney piece in the hall of that grand house, and it remained there till a foolish owner got it replaced by a marble one. So Charles Lamb told this story to his children, Alice and John. When he was telling them this story, he guessed that the children did not approve of the act of that foolish landlord who got a great artistic piece, replaced it by a marble piece of modern design, and Lamb saw that there was a gentle anger on the face of Alice. At once Lamb was reminded of the fact that sometimes he used to see a similar expression on the face of her mother. But this expression was so tender that it could not be called anger. Now, the great grandmother of Alice and John, or grandmother of Charles Lamb, Mrs. Sarafield, she was very kind hearted and she was religious minded. She lived all alone in a great house in Norfolk, and she was very gentle, noble hearted, of course, religious minded lady. She was actually not the owner of the house, but she was the housekeeper. Okay, Mrs. Sarafield, she was the housekeeper, not the owner of the house. She lived in a manner as to maintain the dignity of the house. So, but after some time, the house became very old and nearly decayed. All its belongings and decorations were carried by its owner to his other house of modern design in a nearby village. So the new owner, he got all articles, all pieces of art and the decoration removed from that old house and have them rearranged in the new house of house new house, we can say that new house of modern architecture. But those artistic pieces did not fit in well for a new house. They looked very awkward, as if someone had brought some tombstones from the graveyard in Westminster Abbey and had arranged them in the showy and golden drawing room of a rich lady. So Charles Lamb tells us that it means that the decoration of the old house did not look proper in a new fashioned house. So he gives a description of Mrs. Sarafield, and he also tells about her death and her greatness, because she was respected by all and she was loved by all. He tells his children, dreamy children, of his dream about the virtues of their great grandmother who lived in a great house in Norfolk, that their great grandmother was a popular lady, and when she died, she was given respect poor by the poor and the rich, okay, by the both, because she was very respected lady. The poor in large numbers attended her last rites. Some rich also attended the funeral procession. The people came from miles around. It shows that she was a popular old lady. She was noble, she was religious, she was very kind hearted, and she had learnt very well by heart all the songs of prayer and portion of the Bible. She was no doubt, she was really a great lady. So Charles Lamb, very nicely, he draws the character of his grandmother, and he shows very well her popularity, the popularity of Mrs. Sarafield among the people in Norfolk and in the village around. Great house in Norfolk, because Mrs. Sarafield, she was very courageous, she was very brave, and she lived completely alone in that great house in Norfolk. So no doubt this essay is an autobiographical essay of Charles Lamb, and because he is telling his two dream children about their great grandmother Mrs. Field, who lived in a great house in Norfolk as a housekeeper, and she was very gentle. She was a very religious minded lady. A large number of people attended her funeral procession when she died. So, here he tells the children the cause of her death and her nobility, that she died of cancer. Okay, his grandmother of Charles Lamb, she died of a fatal disease called cancer, and she had to bear that because she was very brave. She had to bear a lot of physical pain due to this disease that was cancer, but it could not defeat her mind. She suffered physically, but her spirits were never bowed. She always remained cheerful. She had a strong willpower because she was highly religious and noble. Great grandmother Sarafield, she lived alone in that great house, and that house was supposed to be ghost haunted house. So Charles Lamb tells the children that their old great grandmother slept for the night all alone in a room of the great house in the countryside. She also believed that in the midnight the ghost of two infants visited the house, and they moved up and down the broad staircase near the chamber where she slept. She had the faith that the ghost of the children would give her no harm, and she was not afraid, although she was all alone in a big house in the silent surroundings and in the ghost haunted house. But she was brave in spite of that ghost haunted place. She lived there completely alone. And why she was not afraid? Because she was a religious minded lady, and she believed that she was never harmed by those ghosts of two infants. So Mrs. Sarafield was not afraid of them, nor did the ghost do her any harm. But Lamb says that the old lady, being noble and religious, was not afraid of the ghost haunting the house each midnight. But he himself was afraid of them, of the ghost, despite the fact that his maid, maid of Charles Lamb, slept by his bed. Hearing those details, John and Alice, they both broadened their eyebrows to show that they were very courageous. And especially John showed, he expressed that he didn't feel afraid of these kinds of stories, these kinds of ghosts of children who visited their great grandmother's house in midnight hours. So now Charles Lamb tells us that he passed his holidays with grandmother, and here we find Charles Lamb's love for past memories. He tells his children that he passed his holidays with his grandmother Mrs. Sarafield at the great house in Norfolk, where she lived completely alone. So he has already told his children about the ghost in the house, and his grandmother saw them, but he never saw any ghost. Now he says that the grandmother was very kind to her grandchildren. She invited them to come and live with her at the big house in the holidays. All of them, that is grandmother, Charles Lamb, his elder brother John Lamb, all of them enjoyed themselves very well. There had been 12 emperors of Rome. Their statues in marble were in the house, and Lamb, he tells that he looked or he gazed upon them, lost in deep thoughts, until he felt that either he himself had turned into a marble statue, or the statue of emperors had come to life by his side. So he, with his brother, with his grandmother, he enjoyed very well his all holidays there in that great house. Now he also tells about his brother John Lamb. He he tells how kind hearted, how handsome, just like a king John Lamb, his elder brother, was, and how much he assisted him. Now he also tells us about his beloved Alice Winterton, whom he loved and with whom he was in hope for 7 years, but he couldn't marry her. Then, in the meantime, he looked towards Alice, his daughter, who appeared to be like a real Alice. When he was looking at her face, his dream began to disappear, and the children grew fainter, and in the last, they all vanished from his view. Then he could see only two sad faces withdrawing in the utmost distance. They said nothing, but they seemed to tell Lamb something which had the full effect of a speech. And they perhaps said, neither we are children of Alice and Charles Lamb, no, we are children at all, but we are only imaginary beings, and we would have been your children. We would have been your children in case you had married Alice Winterton. So they further tell Charles Lamb that they are not real children but only the dream children. And the children of Alice are with her in her house, and they call Bantram their father because she is now the wife of Bertram. So by this expression, the dream children remained Charles Lamb of the reality of his life. So Charles Lamb, he finds himself sitting with his sister Mary Lamb or Bridget. And no doubt that this essay is an autobiographical essay because we find all the personal details, all the family details of his grandmother, of his elder brother, of his beloved, of his dream, of his unfulfilled desires in this essay. So all the autobiographical elements are here. There is also a blend of humor, mixture of both humor and pathos. He laughs and he weeps also. So there we find that his own imagination of Charles Lamb makes his style very attractive, very charming, and this essay Dream Children is full of imagination from the beginning to the end. In the end, his language is very typical. He uses long sentences, but he divides them into phrases and punctuations marks so that they may easily be understood. So this was the critical appreciation of Dream Children.